Okay, and now. This is what I would say. You are about to go on a journey. You're about to go on a journey towards your future. Today, this particular session is designed to get you focusing on what's ahead, not necessarily on what is present. And what we're going to be doing is sharing some truths to you that I believe has the capacity to actually change your life. All right. So before I get started, I'm just going to play a quick trailer of the book, of the source material of this of the webinar, and then we're going to get straight into it. Bless you. Just bear with me as I share my screen.
The Future Now by Otis Pinnock. The future is a fascinating subject. It is a question that has perplexed mankind since the dawn of time. Soothsayers and prognosticators of the past and present have all attempted to frame the future with varying levels of success. However, there is one whose words, when spoken, contain the mystery of the future within them. Via the vehicle of the prophetic, outlines and unlocks the future directly related to individuals, families, cities, and nations, calling and progressively transforming the realities of the present by inviting ordinary men and women on an adventure to co-create a future lovingly prepared for them. As time itself is coming to a close, the future more than ever is seeking access to the present. Are you listening? Can you perceive it? Otis Pinnock shares prophetic secrets that will enable you to see your future in a way that you've never seen it before. In this book, you will discover how to live a future now lifestyle, the original time zone, the language of faith, the master key of the future within, the connection between the kingdom and the future, your enlistment in the future wars. Otis believes the solutions to the prevalent questions and conundrums that present themselves in our day lies within the undiscovered future that lies deep within the heart. This book is designed to activate and challenge you to become an access point for the future by living the future now. Now available on Amazon and Apple Books.
Okay, so we are now going to get onto the topic matter called quantum leadership. It is in one of the chapters of my book, but we're going to look at it in a little bit more detail. I'm going to do my best because the book is hours of writing, and to be able to condense absolutely everything in a couple of hours is going to be nigh on impossible. But I'm going to do my best as we begin to talk about what quantum leadership is. And as you can see, quantum leadership, leading from the future, leading from the future. Okay, what you will learn today. You will learn what quantum leadership is. You'll learn a little bit about the original time zone. You will learn the need to change your perspective. You will learn about the future within. You will learn future speaks, about the future scene, future casting, the emerging future, and lastly, quantum leadership, leading from there. Okay, here we go. Buckle your seatbelts, guys. We're going to get into this. What is quantum leadership? The definition of quantum leadership is simply this. It is the process of leading from the future. I'll say it again. It is the process of leading from the future. Now we're going to learn a little bit about the original time zone. The original time zone. What is it? What am I actually talking about? Well, we really cannot have quantum leadership without understanding what the original time zone actually is. Okay? Now, according to the Bible, in the book of Genesis chapter 1, verse 1, it says, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And when you look at that Hebrew word, it actually says in the dateless past. In other words, you're not able to put a time limit to this thing, but in eternity past, God created the heavens and the earth. Now, if we have a look at this particular diagram, you can begin to see that there is an outer circle called eternity, and there is an inner circle called time. It's important for us to know this. And what you'll see on the left-hand side is the word beginning, and then the right-hand side of the word time, of the circle called time, you will see the end. All right? So in the book of Revelation, Jesus describes himself as the Alpha and the Omega. And he describes himself the beginning and the end. So in other words, what we're saying is that God himself is outside of what we might class as time, space, and matter. He lives in the realm called eternity. All right? So, all right, I'll tell you what, there's so much to teach on this. He lives in the realm called eternity. Now, it's amazing when you look at the creation story. Father said, let there be light, or light be, and there was. And the word of God also lets us know in verse 4 that he created the sun and the moon and the stars. And it begins to also tell us simply that these particular things that he created was used to measure time. Time, okay? So in other words, not only was the earth created, but also time as we know it was created, okay? So when we have a look at time, time is measured in three major distinctions or dimensions, which is called the past, the present, and the future. When you have a look at this particular diagram, you can begin to see that time itself is housed in eternity. It is housed in eternity, okay? So what we're saying is that for us to understand quantum leadership, we need to understand that God lives in a time zone called eternity. It is a time zone that is quite incredible, but not only is it quite incredible, but it also gives us an understanding in terms of his dealing with mankind from the time of creation. Okay, so let me just go back. Sorry, let me just go backwards. Sorry, I've gone forward, I've jumped. Sorry about this. Let's just move backwards. Right. All right, so we're still here at diagram 1, talking about time and then talking about eternity. All right, eternity, time, actually, as we know, it came out of eternity. That's one of the reasons why Jesus could say, I am the Alpha. I stand at the beginning and I also stand at the end. I'm outside of time, space, and matter. It's important that we get this. All right, let's move on. All right, so we're learning about the original time zone. One second. So what we're going to do, with that in mind, it is time for us to change our perspective. Our perspective has got to change. Why? Because we are used to living in time. We are now in the present and we're looking towards the future. So we're used to these dimensions of time. But what I'm saying is right now, we've got to change our perspective if we are going to understand how to lead from the future. Our mindset has to change. Our understanding has got to change. We've got to get back into the original pattern. We've got to get back into the original way that God operates. 100% important. We've got to change our perspective. Now watch this. In Isaiah 46, verse 9 to 10, God is speaking through the prophet Isaiah, and he says, remember the former things of old, For I am God and there is none else. I am God, there is none like me. Declaring the end from the beginning and from ancient times the things that are not yet done. Saying, my counsel shall stand and I will do all my pleasure. Look at that. He says that there's none like him. And one of the things that make him who he is the ability to declare the end from the beginning. Now, most of us that have been brought up in Western culture, we tend to read from left to right, from what we might call the beginning of a sentence to the end of a sentence. But what we're saying is that God is able to declare the end from the beginning. We're beginning to see that the essence of the fact that he lives in eternity, okay? He is able to declare the end from the beginning, or in this particular context, the future from the present. He's able to declare it. Why? Because he lives outside of it. Okay? We've got to change our perspective. Okay. Let's just move on. All right. I'm going to read this verse, Revelation chapter 4, verses 1 to 2. The apostle John, one of Jesus's disciples, is living or is exiled later in life on the Isle of Patmos. There has been numerous attempts on his life. He's been very, very influential, and the Roman Empire said, we can't kill him, so we're going to put him on the Isle of Patmos. I mean, he was there for a while, and whilst he was there, he began to have some supernatural experiences, which he wrote down, which has now become the book of Revelation. All right, so I'm explaining the book of Revelation to you. All right, so what we need to understand, a lot of people don't like looking at the book of Revelation because they don't really understand who it's about. It's not what it's about, it is who it's about. It's about Jesus himself. It is the revelation of Jesus himself. Now, it's amazing that as there is an uncovering, and the word revelation means uncovering, and it's taken from the Greek word apocalypse. All right, so a lot of people think apocalypse is the end of the world. No, it isn't. It is the Greek word for revelation. It is the uncovering of who Jesus is. So as Jesus is uncovered, the future begins to be uncovered too. All right. So in this particular experience that he's having, he says in Revelation chapter 4, it said, after this I looked and behold, a door opened in heaven, and the first voice which I had heard, like the sound of a war trumpet, speaking with me, saying, come up here, and I will show you what must take place after these things. In other words, come up here and I will show you the future. Amen. It's important that we get this, that I will show you the future. Okay, so what is the future? The future really is a dimension of time not experienced yet. So if you're in the present, the future is what's coming in that sense. If we're looking from this perspective, from man's perspective or from ordinary human perspective, well, when you look from God's perspective, the future already exists. Why? Because at this particular moment in time, he asked his apostle to come up to a place where he could see it. Not only could he see it, but he could write about days that haven't come on the earth yet. So you've got to understand, in the realm of eternity, the future is seen and the future is known. And when we begin to understand that, then we can have a look about how God begins to interact with us in terms of his dealings with us. Why? Because in eternity itself, the future is housed in eternity and the future is known. Okay? And John says, he said, at once I was in a special communication with the Spirit, and behold, a throne stood in heaven, with one seated on the throne. How was John able to see the future? Let me explain to you. The reason why, because he was in the highest vantage place that exists in the whole universe. When I say a highest vantage place, if I was to speak naturally, I would speak about a high place or the highest mountain. But you've got to understand that the throne room of God is the highest vantage place that exists in the universe. And at that place, John is able to see days in the future that we haven't experienced yet, which shows us that the future does exist.